Привет всем, с вами я, Janey, и это How Janey Learned Russian. Today we are working on more genitive case singular endings. Today we're doing the feminine, and I warned you in the previous lesson, not warned you, but I let you know that today's going to be not too stressful because you've seen these adjective endings before, and then the genitive, so feminines in genitive singular look identical to feminine plurals in nominative case. So again, this is just almost going to be like meeting an old friend for coffee. Like, hey, I know you. I've seen you before. It's going to be great. So let's get started. Like I said, we're going to break this down into the nouns and adjectives. That's really important to separate out nouns and adjectives because they get different treatments. And then we're going to practice all of it in context. So let's review what we talked about yesterday, which was our masculine and neuter endings of nouns and adjectives. Okay, so hopefully you retained some of that and you can translate some of these sentences for me. Here we go. Как сказать по-русски I love my brother? Okay, so brother's going to get genitive case because he's a masculine animate. You're doing something to him. Remember, accusative case splits into two, technically three. Feminine singulars get the actual accusative case. If it's not animate, it remains a nominative. And if it's masculine animate, it gets genitive case. So we would say, Я люблю моего брата. Я люблю моего брата. Вот так. Okay, now along those same lines, accusative, looking like genitive, how would you say, I don't know this person? I don't know this person. How would you say that? Я не знаю. Okay, so the phrase for this person is этот человек. Okay, so we say, я не знаю этого человека. Я не знаю этого человека. Да? Okay, next one. Our city doesn't have a university. Okay, so when we say that an inanimate object has or doesn't have, we usually just say in our city there is no university. But it's okay if you want to say у нашего города. That's fine. I won't take off points. You're not going to fail. Okay, you're not going to fail the class. Okay, so we're going to say в нашем городе нет университета. В нашем городе нет университета. Okay, next one. Oh, I see an of. Do you guys remember how to do ofs in Russian? This is the University of St. Petersburg. Okay, so the thing that comes after the of in English is the thing that's going to get genitive case. Are we ready? Это университет Санкт-Петербурга. Санкт-Петербурга. Да, это университет Санкт-Петербурга. Вот. Okay, next, we're walking through somebody's house and we're like, oh, is that your son's room? Apostrophe S. Okay, so in English, the thing that gets the apostrophe S is the thing that needs genitive case. Now, we also want to switch the word order. So I usually teach students, in order to know how to do this, let's put an of in there. For those of you who speak Spanish, you already know how to do this. This is the room. Is this the room of your son? Is this the room of your son? Crap, that tells us both your and son needs to get genitive case. Are we ready? Okay, so it's going to go. Это комната вашего сына, or твоего сына. Это комната твоего сына. Вот. Okay, so is this the room of your son? There you go. That's how you do possession. You got to change the word order just a little bit so that you can really see clearly what needs to get genitive case. Okay, remember yesterday I was making you pretend like you're in a big group and you got to find out who has a car. How would you do that? How would you say, Ой, люди, извините, извините, right? You suddenly need to go to the hospital, for example. How would you say, who has a car? Who has a car? У кого машина? У кого есть машина? Right? So remember, those words, что and кто, get cases. And don't worry, they're in the charts in my textbook. So I've got your back on that. Okay, so just a quick reminder, this textbook that we will be working in today is available for purchase in PDF form or hard copy form. I can send that out to you via priority mail if you're located in the United States. I highly recommend it. They did such a good job. Oh my goodness. I was just marveling at like, wow, that is good, thick quality paper. Like they just did a really good job. If you try and take the PDF to Staples, you're going to be paying like over $100 to get it printed and spiraled. So just FYI, if you are a person who wants the hard copy, I'm saving you like a lot of money. So anyway, хорошо. I mean, enough patting myself on the back for now. Also, come over and join us for group classes. With a flat membership fee over on Patreon, you can attend classes throughout the week, kind of have those as your opportunity to practice everything you've been learning, which I highly recommend. For us old farts, our brains start to get very lazy as we get older. They're trying to conserve energy. And so keeping the language relevant in your brain and proving to your brain, hey, you need to know this. You need to know this for class on Saturday, makes it more likely to retain it. So, вот такие дела. Кого надо знать в русской истории? Я очень люблю этого человека, да? То есть, этот человек, это Анна Андреевна Ахматова. Okay, so now she's not going to get genitive case when I say you need to know Anna Andreevna Akhmatova because she's a feminine singular. And what do? We put it into good old-fashioned accusative case. So, обязательно надо знать Анну Андреевну Ахматову. Okay? Вот. А вот 3 интересных факта из жизни. And now this one's going to get genitive case because we're saying 3 interesting facts from the life of Anna Andreevna Akhmatova. So it's going to go 3 интересных факта из жизни Анны Андреевны Akhmatovой. Remember, I said we sat down the other day and we had a serious talk about how names get cases as well in Russian. Oh, sorry about that. I'm really sorry to have to be the one to tell you that. But вот, 3 интересных факта. Okay, so she was a poet, turn of the century, the silver age of Russian literature. Now, the communists take over, and anybody who was kind of that silver age of literature, they were viewed as not sharing the ideals of the party. So her husband and son were victims of the Stalinist repressions in the 30s. And what's incredible about it is she writes, and this is actually how I came to know her, was through her poem Requiem по-русски. And it is all about the process that the poor women of these people who were locked up unjustly in this prison, Kresty, it's in St. Petersburg. Now they're repurposing it and they're turning it into like a mall or something, but it was a prison up until recently. So she would stand out here. It's all about kind of the suffering of the people who lost family members in these Stalinist repressions. They would just disappear and you had no way of knowing. And so the poem talks about her just standing outside the prison doors. And then what's super amazing, this is like possibly one of my favorite places I ever went to in Russia, is in 2007, they put up this pamятник, this like statue to her. And I actually covered it. I'll link in the description box. I did like an analysis of the poem on a live stream because it's just so beautiful. It's like just incredibly beautiful. And she says, if they ever erect a monument to me in this country, don't have it be in Tsarskoye Selo, like have it be here where I stood hundreds of hours and they never opened the doors to me to let me see my son or my husband. So, and there she is. And it's just so good. Like murashki. Oh, I like have actual goosebumps. And you can watch my live stream where I like majorly nerd out and I have a picture of me standing by this and it's like, oh, it's just so freaking good. Anyway. Okay. То есть это интересные факты. And then what's super interesting about her too is unlike many poets of the time, Yesenin, Marina Tsvetaeva, Mayakovsky тоже, she didn't want to piss off. So a lot of them, they hated having their work censored and so they killed themselves. Anna, she just toughed it out, right? She just kept a low profile, just toughed it out. And then it wasn't until years and years later when politically everything was safe that she publishes this poem about the Stalinist repressions. So she actually lived until I believe the 60s. And just like I said, just kind of kept a low profile and or wrote poems that wouldn't ruffle any feathers. So what? Такие дела. I mean, I'm just obsessed with her. My first book of Russian poetry I ever found, before I even knew Russian, was a book of Anna Akhmatova's poems, English on this side, Russian on this side. I couldn't read Russian, but I was just like, oh, this is so good. This is so good. So I read Requiem in English first before I could ever understand it in Russian. And it's, of course, 1,000,000 times better in Russian. And like I said, the description to a live stream where I go through and dissect some of the text, it'll be in the comments below. Вот. Okay, это все. So today we are working in our textbook that, again, you can have in your possession and do this work along with me. I am a big fan of writing things out. I think it's very helpful. So we're going to do some drills, okay? So today we are putting nouns and adjectives into genitive case, and then we're going to do some different contexts to bring it to life, to prove to you that I'm not just making you learn genitive case for nothing. It actually is going to come in handy. I promise you, it will actually come in handy. Okay, хорошо. So let's look at these rules. If the original form, the nominative form, ends in a, давай. Вот. Okay. If the original form ends in a, we're going to replace a with y on the end. So for example, машина goes to машины. That is not cars plural. You have to look at the context to realize, oh, that's a genitive singular happening, not plurals, right? Because if you say something like, у меня нет машины, right? So even though our English bred thinks I don't have cars, once you know Russian a little bit better, you'll be like, oh, that's in genitive. If it ends in a and it's after one of the 7-letter spelling rules, we know that an angel loses its wings every time you write after one of the 7 letters. So let's not do that to those poor Russian angels. That's not fair to them, okay? We're going to follow the 7-letter spelling rule and we're going to replace the a with an e. So no angel is harmed, okay? So studentki, for example, studentka needs to go to e, okay? So if the second to last letter is one of the 7 letters, we have got to change that to an e on the end. Another thing that gets an e is if it originally ended in a ya, such as kuchnia, Россия, for example. That's going to go to kuchni, России, истории, etc. Also, another thing that's going to get an e is a мягкий знак because it has to maintain the softness of the previous consonant. So we're going to replace the мягкий знак with e as well. Okay? Let's bring this to life. Сестра needs to go to... Is this R one of the 7 letters? No, it's not. So we are safe to just do the default. We are safe to just go сестры. Да? Сестры. And by the way, you'll hear me say this all the time because I have 2 sisters, and 2, 3, 4 forces genitive singular. So у меня 2 сестры. Вот. Okay? История. Okay, ya needs to go to e. So we go истории. Истории. And by the way, in spoken normal speech, you cannot hear that that's 2 e's. It just sounds like e on the end. Unless it's a teacher, they may really pronounce it. But yeah, in everyday spoken speech, you can't necessarily hear that. Песня. Песня. A ya on the end. What does it need to go to? Песни. Песни. Вот. Okay? Бабушка. Бабушка. Okay, well, ka is one of the 7 letters. And we don't want to hurt any angels. We want them to keep their wings forever. So we're going to make the a and the e. So we don't violate the 7-letter spelling rule. So that goes to babushki. Because we cannot write k. In Ukrainian, you can. You have that noise in Ukrainian. Kyiv. And it's so weird. But yeah, babushki. Любовь. Okay. This is a fleeting vowel, people. You cannot rely on it. It is going to run away from you every time. It's going to, if we delete out that o, what needs to happen to that мягкий знак? It's going to go to e, and it's going to go to любви. And guess what? We've seen this before. We saw this in prepositional case. You may not remember, but for example, мы говорим о любви. We're talking about love. So I always like to joke that it's like they've started to run out of ideas. They're like, oh, just do a любви. I can't think of anything right now. Just have it be a любви, just like prepositional case. It's like they ran out of ideas of new things to do. Okay. Лошадь, a horse, the мягкий знак is going to go to an e. Лошади. Вот так. Лошади. Да? Okay, now we do adjectives, okay? Adjectives. Вот. Okay, so if it ends in aya, we're going to switch it out for an oi. Where have we seen this before? You're going to see this in, so we've seen this before in prepositional case, and guess what? You're going to see it in 2 more cases. Leave a comment in the comments below if you know what are all the cases that get this oi ending in feminine adjectives. Do you know which ones get the oi ending in feminine adjectives? Again, we've seen it before. They ran out of ideas. So they're like, we're just going to reuse some of the classics. Let's just keep recycling these classics. Okay, so novy, so novaya in genitive case goes to novy. Okay, if it ends in a ya, it's going to go to a yay, or if it's something affected by the 5-letter spelling rule. Again, none of these matter very much in speech. They all have to do with where the final stress is. If the final syllable, it's fine. Just look it up. 5-letter spelling rule. Again, it really doesn't matter in spoken speech. Okay, but here it is. After sh, zh, ch, you only write yay if the ending is not stressed. If it's not stressed. Okay. Вот. So красивая. That's not affected by the 5-letter spelling rule, so we're just going to go to красивой. Вот. Большая. Okay, we have a sh, so that's going to be affected by the 5-letter spelling rule. And the aya is stressed, so we'll get an ой there. Большой. Okay. Последняя. This one's not affected by the 5-letter spelling rule, but it does have a ya on the end. So ya goes to yay. Последний. Последний. Старая. That one's super easy. Just going to go to старая. And notice I'm not pronouncing it as ой, старой. Да у меня нет старой машины. I mean, in some parts of Russia, like the super country bumpkin parts of Russia, they may say it like that. We say it as if it's not stressed. If the o is not stressed, we're saying it as a oi. Yeah. Старой. Right here, we have something that is affected by the 5-letter spelling rule. We have mladshaya, and we're going to write a yay on the end of mladshaya in genitive case because the ending is not stressed like it was in большой. So it's mladshaya. So that one's going to get a mladshий. And notice, you seriously cannot hear the difference between I and yay on the ends of these words in spoken speech. Okay, next one. Белая is going to go to, written as белой, but we don't say that. We don't say that because we're not from, we're not from places that do оконье. It's like people that say a lot of o. Белой. So that's going to be белой, старой, красивой. Вот. Okay, now let's bring it to life. Now I'm going to prove to you that, hey, guess what? In order to say some things, you're going to need genitive case. And you're going to need genitive feminines. Okay? So for example, you want to tell me that the city Tver, let me know in the comments if you've been to Tver. That's a great little city in between Moscow and St. Petersburg. You want to tell me that it's located not far from Moscow. Yeah? Tver находится недалеко от... What needs to happen to Moscow to say from Moscow? От... Anybody know? Bueller? Anyone? От Москвы. От Москвы. I just dated myself by making the Bueller joke. Okay, хорошо. Эта машина... Okay, what are we trying to say here? So we have моя жена in parentheses. This is a car... My wife? Oh, this is my wife's car. So let's say this is the car of my wife. That tells us we need to put my wife. Okay, so it needs to go эта машина моей жены. Вот так. Okay. Next, looks like I'm wanting to say this Russian girl has a beautiful name. So we have then we have эта красивая русская девушка. Эта русская девушка has a beautiful name. Okay, so эта русская девушка needs to go into genitive case. Let's try it. Это, as you can see from this cute little chart here, is going to go to этой. Этой русской. And then девушка is affected by the 7-letter spelling rule, so we cannot replace that with no, that would be so unfair to the world. So let's go. Девушки. Девушки. Так, okay. Next one. We want to say who doesn't have any information about the trip. So we have кто in parentheses, which is going to need to get genitive case. And then we have this phrase никакая информация. No such information. Yeah? So who doesn't have any information about, and notice you double negate in Russian. Okay, so let's put кто into genitive case. Here it is over for you here in the chart. То есть у кого нет, and then we need to go никакой информации So, информации о поездке. Вот. Next one. And by the way, there are a lot of people from this place in Russia. So in parentheses we have Средняя Азия. Средняя Азия — это, например, Таджикистан, Казахстан, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan. Вот. So that's considered Central Asia, and that's where a lot of Russian immigrants come from. So we want to say he's from Central Asia. Он is, and we have that я-я, средняя. Do you remember what happens to я-я ending, adjective endings? It's going to be ей. Он из Средней Азии. Азии. Вот. Он из Средней Азии. Okay? Now, tell me, so now we open our toolbox to do some different tasks. Okay, how would you tell me something you don't have in your house? And ideally, it'll be a feminine thing because that's what we've been working on. But hey, challenge yourself and do a masculine. Tell me a couple things. Tell me a masculine you don't have. Tell me a feminine you don't have. Да? Так, в нашем доме у нас нет бассейна. Да, у нас нет бассейна. We don't have a pool. В нашем доме нет... And then the joke that I made on my answers at the beginning of the chapter was "У нас нет тишины," which means we have no silence here, unless we're gone, right? Because we have too many kids to ever have silence. У нас нет собаки. У нас нет собаки в нашем доме. Вот. Okay, now tell me someone who has a big dog. Okay, so the person that has the big dog is the thing that's going to get the genitive. So whoever has that big dog gets genitive. It's okay if they're masculine. That's okay, you know? У кого есть большая собака? У моего бывшего студента есть 3 больших собаки. German Shepherds, да, у него 3 собаки. То есть у моего бывшего студента, my former student. Да. As far as feminine, I really don't know anybody that has a big dog. Я знаю, у кого есть маленькая собака, но я не знаю, у кого большая, like a feminine who has a big dog. У нашей соседки есть маленькая собака. Она не большая. Вот. Next one. Tell someone something your sister has. How would you tell something your sister has? Okay. У моей самой старшей сестры очень хорошая работа. Она зарабатывает очень хорошие деньги, потому что она терапевт. Да? Okay. Tell someone how many brothers and sisters you have. Okay, you're going to hear me talk about this one all the time. У меня 2 сестры и 1 брат. Да, у меня 2 сестры и 1 брат. Но дети у меня 2 сына и 2 дочери. 2 сына и 2 дочери. Wow, my children are the perfect example of genitive case. 2 сына, 2 дочери. Все, супер. Okay? And the last one, tell me something your city is not far from. Oh, this one's perfect for me because вот здесь хорошее слово. Столица, the capital. Вот, наш город находится недалеко от столицы США. То есть наш город находится очень недалеко от столицы США, от столицы Соединенных Штатов Америки, да, от Вашингтона, округ Колумбии. Вот, наш город находится очень недалеко от нашей столицы. Все. Okay, хорошо. So now let's take it back to the presentation and review everything you just learned. Hopefully none of this comes as a surprise to you. Hopefully you were paying attention. Let's see what we got going here in the review. Okay, вот. Нет, вот. This is my wife's car. So the way we rephrase that to know what thing to put into genitive case is we say, this is the car of, and then whatever comes after of is going to get genitive case. This is the car of my wife. Okay, let's try it. Это машина моей жены. Это машина моей жены. Вот. My sister has a big house. This is true. У моей сестры большой дом. У моей сестры большой дом. Вот. Tver, remember I talked about that, halfway between Moscow and St. Petersburg. In fact, if you've been to Moscow, the famous street Tverskaya used to be the street you would walk along all the way up until Tver. That's why it's called Tverskaya улица. I bet you there's some Russians that don't even know that. Вот. Тверь недалеко от Москвы. Да. Тверь недалеко от Москвы. Вот. How would we say he is the president of Russia? And if you want to be fancy pants, you can say of the Russian Federation. You can be very fancy if you want. Okay, so он президент России. Президент России, or if you want to be super fancy, он президент Российской Федерации. Да, он президент Российской Федерации или России. Okay, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. How would you say that? У меня 2 брата и 2 сестры. У меня 2 брата и 2 сестры. Now, if you have like 5 brothers, or like you have one of those huge, Duggar families, you'll learn more about that when we get to genitive plural, because once we get to the number 5, it goes over into genitive plural. But 2, 3, 4 gets genitive singular. Хорошо. Это все на сегодня. So we have drilled the endings. That's all the drilling we're going to do. And now in the next little bit, we're going to practice all the different usages and bring it all to life. Хорошо. Это все на сегодня. Увидимся на следующем уроке. Пока-пока.